Welcome to Amplify, the personal brand business show. Today on the show, Bob is speaking with Laura Ora.
I often say that the value of my content is greater than the color of my eyeshadow. No, nobody cares, right? But you care when I say something and I drop a nugget of wisdom or I slide something across your phone that makes you like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. You know, I'm all about planting seeds in your brain that grow that later on you're like, Laura, damn it. But I get you thinking in a new way and it opens things up, and that's where change can really happen. So
hi there and welcome to the Personal Brand Business Show. My name is Bob Gentle, and every week I speak to incredible people who share their secrets to building, marketing and monetizing your expertise and the mindset you need for your business to grow and thrive. If you're new to the show, then while you have whatever device that is in your hand, don't put it down. Take a second to subscribe. That way you won't miss a single thing. So we are going to be exploring again. We've been doing this a little bit recently, the mysteries of the mind today, and specifically how to get out of your way. This week, I am thrilled to be joined by Laura Ora. I've been enjoying your content recently. 400 podcasts. I know you're having a break, but 400 and something podcasts is impressive by any measure. So you get a gold star for that. Laura, welcome to the show.
hey, Bob, thanks for having me.
So for the listener who's meeting you for the first time, can you maybe just start by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what it is you actually do?
Yeah. So I am Laura Ora. I am a speaker and a coach. I'm based in Pennsylvania in the USA. And I am ridiculously passionate about helping people to learn how to own what they really want and to guide and help them to shift all of the mental stuff that typically stops them from moving forward, right? Like we tend to just overcomplicate, we over evaluate, we over worry about everything. And the number one thing that stops people from moving forward is themselves. And helping people to break that barrier and move forward and actually get that thing, I'm here for it.
So I really love this. And we were talking just before I hit record about how much we dislike the word coach.
Yeah.
So let's get that out there for everybody. I had a guest talking about coaching shaped people who have an element of coaching within what they do. Neither of us have found a better word than coach. For me, I sometimes use the word companion with clients, but let's just acknowledge that coach is a word. It sucks. We all agree on that, and let's move past it. So I guess helping people move past all the crap and move towards what they want is great. And we will talk about that. But I guess before that all needs to come, how do you help people identify what it is they want? Because we have so many hang-ups around giving ourselves permission to dream a little bit. And I guess everything has to begin with fantasy. So when you're presented with a new client, I guess a good place to start is what brings people to you?
That's a great question. People tend to come to me when they have been trying so many different things to find happiness and fulfillment. And they have tried everything, every which way in every direction, and nothing has really stuck, right? They've had moments, they've had successes, but there just is this longing inside of them for something different. And they've tried so many things that they're like, I don't even know what's left. What do I even do with this? And one of the very first questions I tend to ask people is, what do you actually want? And I'm usually met with a blank stare or the comment of like, I have no idea. I've never thought about that before. No one's ever asked me that question. I've not sat long enough to even think about that. Or if I have thought about it, I won't allow myself to go there. And I'll tell you, one of the top things that stops people from really pursuing what it is that they truly want, it's not even, can I do it? But it's, how is it going to affect everybody else? How is this going to impact the people in my world? And so they won't even allow themselves to go there, to visualize, to say like, hey, what if? They stop themselves before they even get to that point. And so they're spinning their wheels. They're trying new things and ending up doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, what's left? What's missing? Well, what's missing is really acknowledging who you really are and what you actually want.
So I could imagine there's all kinds of tricks people will play on themselves to avoid that honestly looking in the mirror and accepting the little boy or the little girl dreams. Because we've been so busy telling ourselves for decades, a lot of the time, that those aren't reasonable aspirations or ambitions, or you can't make money doing that, or probably lots of different things. How do you help people go from this place of probably unacknowledged denial to actually giving themselves permission to look in these bright corners that they've always avoided because it makes them too sad to look at?
It really is a process, right? Like, I never want to position this and like, oh, just do these 3 things and you'll have everything you want, right? It just doesn't work like that, because we're human beings and we're very multi-passionate and multi-complex beings. And, we really have to acknowledge the thoughts, the beliefs, and the patterns that are present in our world. And I think one of the top reasons that people don't shift forward is because they don't want to revisit those things. They don't want to look at what might be considered the shadow side or the dark side or the challenging corners or moments in the world. But there's so much liberation in exploring yourself, and especially without judgment. I think that's one of the most important things to know, is like, you can explore these parts of yourself without judgment. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's all about curiosity and getting to know yourself better and understanding your tendencies, right? It's understanding where you resist things and why you resist it. There's a saying that I put out a lot that gets people all kinds of wound up, and it's, the thing that you want the most is often behind the thing that you resist the most. And if you can really start to evaluate and get curious about the things that you're resisting, aka the things you're avoiding, that can tell you so much about not only the things that are really important to you, but the areas of your life for you to focus on evolving. And it's that kind of combination that can really start to unlock these things so that you can really pursue these aspects of yourself.
There's a danger that this comes across as quite abstract for the listener.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if, obviously not naming names, perhaps a story might help illustrate what we're discussing here. Is that something that you feel you'd be able to pull off?
Yeah. Well, I can use a personal story. I'm happy putting my name right on it. So when I say the thing that you want the most is often behind the thing that you resist the most, this is where we are consistently bumping up against tension within ourselves, right? This is when you're trying to change something, but you keep getting the same result. You keep attempting things or thinking that you want to do things, but it just never really seems to get over that hump, right? When I think back to one of the things that I resisted the most was being a full-time speaker. So I, through building a branding agency for 16 and a half years, I developed this very, very deep passion and skill in interviewing people, communicating, sharing wisdom, extracting ideas from people, and being able to turn it back around and provide it back to that person with guidance, with clarity. And as I was growing the branding agency, I also realized that my life as a speaker and a coach was kind of forming, but oh my gosh, Bob, letting go of a branding agency that I've spent 20 years going to school for and practicing for and building and rebuilding and all this stuff, like, it seems ridiculous to let go of something that I've spent so much time on, right? So what am I doing? I'm consistently bumping up against this. My time is divided. My attention is divided. My energy, my finances, my resources, everything is so divided because I'm not making a decision. And even still, in the back of my mind, I would get this little whisper every once in a while that said, like, what if you just let it go and went full-time speaking? And it was like, absolutely not. I can't do that. What would people think? This is what my reputation is built in. This is what my career has been based off of. I've spent so much time and money and effort doing this. How could I possibly let something go? And I tell you, I got to this point where it became so painful to continue dividing myself. But not only that, it continued to be painful to not do the thing that my soul was drawn to, right? Like, everything about me knew it was time, but I was resisting it. And so I kept running into the same problems.
It's funny. You and I have a lot in common in that I actually closed my creative agency for very similar reasons, because it was successful by anybody's measure, but it was limiting me in so many ways. And it was the best thing I ever did. But honestly, it was like a death.
Yeah.
It was really difficult.
I went through a grieving process afterwards. I didn't think that I would, because I actually felt very refreshed and rejuvenated by the idea of doing it. But once it was all said and done, my body gave out. I got COVID really, really bad for the first time this entire, since day one. That was the first time I ever got it. And I got really sick. And I think it's because my body was finally able to let down. I was finally able to release. But I couldn't keep going that way because it was draining me. And I lost my spark and I felt resentful about it. And it just, all the wrong things were starting to come into my world because of it. And I'm like, you know what? I can't resist this anymore. I've got to take the gutsy move. I've got to do what my soul keeps calling me to do. And so I did things differently. And, when I'm talking to people about going after what you really want, I think the 3 key things that you really need to know is, first, you got to get really clear on what you want in the first place. The second is to decide and commit that you're actually going to do it. And the third is to take steps towards it. And that's the formula. There's really no bells and whistles or sparklers that we can light here. That is literally the process. And you do it over and over and over again until it becomes your new reality. And that's what I chose to do. And so I don't have that resistance anymore. It's relieved. And my physical body, my life, my home, my energy is all completely different because of it in a better way.
I think one of the things with discovery is you can only discover new things while you're moving.
Yes.
If you're standing still and doing nothing, all you can see is what's around you. It's only when you start moving, you can say, well, I want to go over there. And this is where somebody like you can be really helpful, because you can start shining light on some of these dark areas, saying, well, okay, now I need to explore over here. I need to explore over here. And then suddenly the map opens up around you and you have some orientation. And where I'd like to go next in this conversation is, this is something you've been doing. And it's something a lot of content creators do, because as content creators, we're constantly exploring, we're constantly talking to and meeting new people. You can't help but grow in this. And something that I find again and again is when you kind of enter this creator universe, strange things start to happen and you build a bit of an audience, and with audience comes opportunities, and being part of a community brings other opportunities, and it raises your awareness of what's actually possible for you. So what I tell people about this all the time, but I would be really interested in your perspective on that, because that sounds like that's kind of where you are at the moment, that you're not the version of you that you were at the beginning of the journey, and the version of you that you are now sees things very differently.
Oh, absolutely. You just, when you really start going down this journey, I think when you stay open in so many different ways, while also staying locked on the direction of where you want to go, right? I don't know that anybody ever really truly arrives or gets to a finish line, so to speak. Like, if we can release this expectation that, like, I'm going to, like, quote unquote, make it, right? I think that you can have levels of success and most certainly achieve things along the way, but we're always learning and growing and evolving. I don't want to be the same person today that I was 5 or 10 years ago, because every mistake that I've made has armed me with new knowledge. Every failure that I've experienced has given me so many new tools in my toolkit. With all the people, through hosting the podcast for 5.5 years and over 400 episodes, I've met so many incredible people around the world. You and I are in 2 different places in the world having this conversation right now. It just opens up your eyes and perspective that really anything is possible. And that when you see people and what they're doing, to use it as influence. But I really want to hone in and make sure that everyone knows, like, when you take influence, take that as inspiration and then put it in your Lego box and make it your own. Because I think a lot of the tension that we experience is trying to do things like everybody else is doing it, and then beating ourselves up because it's not working for us the same way that it's working for them. Because we're all on different parts of our journey. We all have different lessons to learn and different experiences that we've lived and successes that we've achieved. what works for me is not going to be a carbon copy for what works for you, but we can learn from each other and take inspiration from that and say, okay, what did I like about that? And how can I make that my own? And the success and the joy and the growth from that it's immeasurable.
Something I'd like to explore with you is this idea of professionalism.
Oh, I like
a lot of people, I don't know if this is the right question, but I think you're the right person to ask about it. If you're going to bet on yourself, if you're going to get out of your own way and say, you know what, I'm going to do this thing that I really wanted to do, you're going to need to do it as yourself.
Yes.
And anybody who wants to build any kind of business is going to need to be visible as themselves. And I think a lot of people fall into this trap of feeling that they have to present as professional. What's interesting is the most successful people I know are some of the people who come across as the most relaxed and self-effacing. And what I love about your content is that you do relax into yourself very well. What's your perspective on that? Is that something that's intentionally evolved? And when you're speaking to other people, this must come up in conversation. And how do you guide them through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for noticing that. It did not always come natural. I absolutely went through the filtration system of Laura has to be a professional to be taken seriously. Laura has to be professional to make money or to be hired or any of these things. And, I have found that anytime that I allow myself to be more of me, I'm happier, I'm more relaxed, I'm more fulfilled, and opportunities come to me. The right opportunities come to me. That's a really big key there. The right opportunities, because whatever you're putting out is what you're inviting people to be a part of. And if you're putting on what I would call like a 40-hour play every single week, that's the vision of you, the version of you that you now have to maintain. And you want to talk about exhaustion? That's when your soul starts to cry, right? That's when you really start to burn out from the inside out, because you're trying to maintain something that is so unnatural to you. And so I fought for such a long time about I'm just who I am. I'm quirky and I cuss and I'm laid back and I'm very blunt, but I'm also super supportive and I'm energetic and I've always been a little bit of the weird one. And why hide any of that anymore? Like, it just got to the point where it's too hard to try to be anything other than who I am. It's way harder to be somebody else than it is just to embrace who you are. And I'll tell you what, I don't know. I don't know what happened. There wasn't like a defining moment, but I just started being my quirky self in my content and my numbers started skyrocketing. And in professionalism, I think it's another front. I think it's another should. I think it's one of those categories that has been shoved down our throats to say hey, if you want to be something, this is what you have to be to do it. And so no thanks.
Well, I think Mike Michalowicz, he wrote this book, Get Different. And I refer to this fairly often, that most people's approach to marketing is, I need to out-normal the other guy. And that just means nobody gets seen, because we just all fade into a sea of blue or beige. What I love about what you do, and I think this is what everybody should take away from this, is it doesn't matter who you are or what you do. 1/3 of people are not going to like you. 1/3 of people are going to ignore you, and 1/3 are going to love you. So it's really important that the version of you they love is the version of you that you actually love, because it does create this resonance that attracts people. And what I love about it is when you are authentic, you attract the people who actually like you.
Yes.
And they become wonderful people to work with. If you're presenting an alternate persona, that's the person they like. And that's where what you said, it's exhausting, because you have to maintain that. And you attract people that you really don't enjoy spending time with.
I think it's so important to be the same person that you are from 9 to 5 as you are from 5 to 9. And while we have different levels of ourself, right? Like, I like to consider we each have our own kind of personal scale. What I might consider from couch to ball gown and everything in between, right? Like there's the meeting version of ourselves. There's the casual Saturday running errands version of ourselves. There's our couch potato self, right? Like we all have different versions of ourselves. And as long as you're on your own line, you're being your authentic self. It's when we try to get onto other people's lines and replicate what other people are doing that it just doesn't work. You stop doing it, you lose the motivation, you pull back, you're not growing the way that you want to. And it's because you're trying to do it in a way that doesn't belong to you. And so I would encourage everyone to like acknowledge what your own personal scale is. And if you're not sure how to do this in business, look at the area where you hold back as being yourself. That's one of the best places to start is like, maybe it's when you're creating content. Maybe it's when you're writing. Maybe it's when you're in meetings, right? Are you changing and adjusting your voice a little bit because you want to take it up to that, hi, I'm talking to you now on a podcast, right? Like my voice literally could not maintain that if I tried to do that. I have a lower voice for a female and I'm totally cool with it because it's what I have. Like it's literally who I am. So look at the areas where you're changing something about yourself or holding back a version of yourself. That's a really great place to start to evolve.
What I was thinking about as you were saying this, it brings you back to this phrase that you said earlier, that what you want the most is hiding behind the thing you resist the most.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, that's actually showing up as themselves online or showing up at all. I am curious, for everybody, there's a slightly different person they feel called to serve or ideal client. For you, who is it that you most want to work with?
Yeah. So I'm most drawn to work with women in particular. I do work with all genders, but women in particular, they're just at this kind of crossroads. They're ready for more, but they don't know how to get it. They want to do the work, but they don't know what to do. And sometimes that's in business. Sometimes that's in personal life. Sometimes that's in leadership. But like I mentioned earlier, there's this call for more, and I've tried everything and I don't know what to do. I need someone to help me find my blind spot. What am I not seeing? What am I not addressing? Help me understand what I am not seeing that's right in front of me. I'm intuitive by nature, and I'm really excellent about pinpointing the root of things, that maybe the one thing or the several things that have been stopping you, and then helping you to guide through you.
And I guess whenever I have somebody that is working in the online space as a coach or consultant or something like that, I kind of always like to ask this one question, which is, opportunity usually comes to us through one of four doors. It can come through outbound sales activity. It can come through inbound, through content and content marketing, ads, or relationships on our network. What does that normally look like for you? Most people will have a real dominance of one.
For me, it tends to be inbound. So I put out a lot of content, like a lot of video content. And back to, being who I am. Sometimes I'm wearing makeup and sometimes I'm not. There's no formality. It's not it's just very raw and candid. And it's the style that I teach in. And it's what attracts people. So I get a lot of people come from inbound because they're catching my content and they're getting to know who I am. And it's a slow build, but once they're in, they're in. Yeah. And that's the place that I get to nurture them in.
I could totally see that. I think I would probably use you as one of the best case studies for, if I were to say quantity over quality, it wouldn't be doing it justice. Because, I mean, on the podcast just now, you look super polished. The video quality is awesome. But you don't let that get in the way to put content out. You'll do it on your phone. There's no editing. That's what people really need to be doing. It's just have people seen your face today. Have you touched their heart to today? This is really all people need to worry about. And you are a wonderful case study in that. I really enjoy your content for that specifically.
I appreciate that very much. It's been a journey to get to that and to have the confidence in myself to know that I am enough and my content is enough, that I don't need all the bells and whistles to prove that. And that just happens to work for me, right? I often say that the value of my content is greater than the color of my eyeshadow. No, nobody cares, right? you care when I say something and I drop a nugget of wisdom, or I slide something across your phone that makes you like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. I'm all about planting seeds in your brain that grow, that later on you're like, Laura, damn it. But I get you thinking in a new way, and it opens things up, and that's where change can really happen. So I appreciate you seeing me that way, and that compliment I received that, because it's taken a lot to get to that point, but now I love it. And it's so easy. That's the thing. It's easy to be you. I don't have to think about it. I'm not over planning it. I literally get a drop in and I grab my phone and I record a 45-second video and I save it in my drafts until I can sit down and put the words on it. Like that's literally the extent of my creating content.
So what does an engagement in your business look like? How do you actually work with people when the rubber hits the road?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. I have a membership community. It's for driven women specifically, and it's kind of this combination of audio learning podcast style with the community aspect of accountability. So I'm teaching them, it's the how, right? Like we can talk about the fluffy stuff all day long, but how do we actually take action? The community is the place for that. I also offer one-on-one coaching in a couple of different capacities, so some direct guidance and help and support for sure. And speaking, I love going to organizations. I love, doing keynote speeches and just getting in front of people to help them learn some new things about themselves.
Can we talk about the speaking for a minute?
Yeah.
What does your process of speaking look like? And maybe if I qualify that question, do you have like a few go-to talks that you will regularly cycle around, or is it everything custom every time?
I have a few like core talks. Outsmart Your Thoughts is my keynote speech. So that's, the basis for all the things that I teach. And then I have a couple of different workshop style and or, shorter speeches that I teach. They usually revolve around things like people pleasing, figuring out what you actually want, building confidence, taking control of your mind, things of that nature. So I've got some core speeches, but then I have a laundry list of topics that we can develop talks off of as well.
Something's just popped into my head. And as a speaker, sort of, if you try to build speaking into a full-time thing, what's your process for that? Obviously, you have to bet on yourself. That's number one. You have to go for it. But do you have like a process you follow for identifying and pitching opportunities?
Yeah, so this focus is relatively newish to me. I'm just 7 months here full time as a speaker, so I'm still figuring it out. I don't have anything that's polished and perfected, but what it really looks like is first really knowing who I am and what I bring, and then outreach to find companies and organizations and events that are looking to bring people in. So of course, things like conferences, different types of events, leadership, entrepreneurship, women focused leadership, things of that nature. So it's like knowing who I am, knowing where I best serve, like that market, and then doing the outreach. There's some content that we have pulled together to explain a little bit about who I am and what I offer. I've got a one-sheeter, it's the building blocks. It's the pieces that all get pulled together that you have to put a lot out. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it's not just apply to one and get one. It's apply to 30 and get 1.5. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of outreach, but it's what I know I'm supposed to do. So it's worth it.
I have a few people I want to put you in touch with, but that's a thing for afterwards. If people want to connect with you, if they want to go deeper with you, how can they do that? What's your favorite way for people to come into your world?
Yeah. So lauraora.com is the hub for all things me. That's where you can learn about my programs and stuff. If you want to get some, what I like to consider a swift kick in the mental ass, followed by the best hug you'll ever get, TikTok and Facebook is where I put out the majority of my video content. So I'm at that Laura Ora across all platforms.
And what's one thing you do now you wish you'd started 5 years ago?
One thing I do now that I wish I would have started 5 years ago. Making decisions and moving faster.
That's a good answer.
I sat on a lot of things for a lot of time, mulling over it, complicating it, thinking about it, evaluating it. And don't get me wrong, there is a time and a season where you need to let things marinate. But I move faster now because I don't let all that mind junk get in the way. When I know, and then I move. And that makes things a lot easier and it gets things moving a lot faster.
Absolutely. You'll find out if it worked or didn't work much more quickly. That's really important. Laura Ora, you have been an awesome guest. I've really enjoyed meeting you. We will speak again. But for now, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Before I go there, you did mention a quiz of some kind, didn't you?
Yes.
Let's talk about that. So tell me about the quiz.
Yeah. So if you struggle with your mindset, if you tend to get in your own head and you're not sure what to do, you kind of spiral out of the way. I've got a free audio resource for you. If you go to lauraora.com/foundations, I will send you the method that I've created that allows you to be able to shift your thoughts in the moment. So it's a 5-day private podcast audio. They're short little episodes, but it teaches you this method so that you can shift that mind junk literally anywhere at any time without having to go anywhere and do anything other than supporting yourself. So
I will be there. Hopefully my listener will be there. It's a really good idea. And I love doing it as a private podcast. That's a slick move. I like that.
Thank you.
So that does bring us to the end of another episode. For you at home listening, thank you very much for your time. I hope you did enjoy this. If you did enjoy this, you will love the Personal Brand Business Roadmap. It's everything you need to start, scale, or fix your expert business. Just visit amplifyme.agency and put your details into the nice big bold pop-up there, and it will take care of the rest. Thanks for listening. See you again next week.